We're now live on YouTube, members.
Thank you. Right, well, good evening all and welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet. We'll start with the first item, apologies of absence.
I've not received any apologies, Leader.
We move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
I'd just like to mention that the last item on the agenda, I'm obviously a New Romney Town Ward Councillor, and it's my hometown, so I do have an interest in as much as I live in the town that it affects.
Thank you. Item 3, to approve the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 21st of October. Is there any objection to the approval of those minutes? Then those minutes are approved. Thank you. They move on to item 4, key performance indicators. For the indicator review for the 2021 and half-year performance reports, quarter 1 and 2. This document, along with several of the others tonight, have been to the Finance and Performance Scrutiny subgroup. This particular item, there were some discussions, but no formal proposals to any addition or alterations to this particular report. It was agreed and noted. You will see in it, we are suggesting that some of the old indicators are ceased and new ones are put in. The rationale is fairly straightforward on it, that some no longer apply and some we need others to actually go to where we're heading. Has anybody got any questions? If not, I will propose the recommendations and I need a seconder.
Happy to second, Leader.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby, second. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Councillor Whitebrown.
Thank you. Yes, I think most of the changes are very sensible. There was just one point I wanted to pick up in Appendix 1, is that we've got a specific number for the fixed penalty notices that we're going to issue. And I thought that was a bit odd, because surely we should just be issuing how many are needed, how many offences there are. And surely our target should be nil, really. And I note that we don't have a target for PCNs, and I'd have thought it was the same principle. And then moving on to Appendix 3, it's something I've been trying to get an answer to for some time, really. If you look at quarter 2 for the homelessness approaches, we had 348, and yet only 10 of those were closed as prevented, and only 40 of those were closed as relieved. And I'm just a bit concerned about what's happened to the balance of that figure. I mean, I'm sure not all of them were actually people who were genuinely at risk of homelessness, but I would have thought a good proportion were. And I'd just be interested to know what's happened to those hundreds of people who appear to have...
Is there an officer here that can give me some answer tonight? If not, I will get you a breakdown of it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Leader. I'll have to come back to you on that with a bit more detail, but can certainly follow that up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? In which case we'll go to the vote, please.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Collier.
For.
Councillor Godfrey.
For.
Councillor Field. Oh, sorry. Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
For.
Councillor Monk.
For.
Councillor Peel.
For.
Councillor Prater.
For.
Councillor Wybrow,
4.
Councillor Wimble.
4.
That's 8 in favour, Leader.
Pardon? Can you say that again?
It's unanimous.
Unanimous, thank you. Good. Then we move on to item 5, which is the update to the general fund budget 2021. Again, this report's been before the Finance and Scrutiny. Again, no specific recommendations. And of course, it's a subject close to my heart, the general fund. But we seem to be weathering the storm, I would say, is the general direction of travel. Again, we specifically asked for some environments to the general fund so we can get through the budgets of this year and set on the target for next year. I would like to propose the recommendations. Is there a seconder?
Happy to second, Leader.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby, and over to you, members. Any questions or queries, remarks? No. Okay, so as proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby, can we go to the votes, please?
Councillor Collier,
4.
Councillor Godfrey,
4.
Councillor Field,
4.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby,
4.
Councillor Monk,
4.
Councillor Peel,
4.
Councillor Prater,
4.
Councillor Wybrow,
4.
Councillor Wimble.
4.
That's unanimous, Leader.
Thank you very much. We now move on to item 6, the medium-term financial strategy. Again, this very important document, this, and we're asked to note the report, but on recommendation 3 to adopt the reserves policy outlined in Appendix 2. Basically, with the intervention of COVID and the impact it's had on our long-term finances, we've had to very carefully study what we need to go forward, and this document sets it all out. It's actually, in a way, quite scary reading because the figures are enormous. Having said that, we have been there before, and I dare say, as long as we are prudent and plan properly, we will get through it all. Again, has anybody got any questions or remarks? Councillor Prater.
I wouldn't let you down. Yeah, I fully take on board what you're saying in terms of this. It's the numbers which are currently there are currently scary, but then we're in a currently scary financial position. Ask Croydon, who today started bankruptcy, or issued the letter. So it is difficult for councils across the country. We're in a much better position than that financially. The figures which are looked at over the next 3 years, clearly we couldn't sustain that position over the next 3 years unless something changed. And that's exactly where we're at the moment, I think, is that this budget, the MTFS is being set on the basis that we know that we are going to have to change, and the income or expenditure will have to shift in that period. But we're expecting things to change over the course of the next 6 months, and it would be imprudent to cut our expenditure to meet our to deal with that right now before we saw what happened. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think the reserves policy adjustment, as far as I can see, as far as I understand it, is to facilitate that, certainly for the next year, effectively to allow the general reserves to drift down a little if things don't change, and it gives us that flexibility. It is demonstrating effectively a worst case at this moment, which I fully accept that we're not going to be allowed, we shouldn't reasonably aim for, we couldn't afford to accept the worst case which is there at the moment, but that it's something that we have to manage. So I accept it on that basis. I think that's the right thing to do. It is wrong to panic and cut budgets now. It is wrong to try and deal with that in that way. Let us see what government funding looks like. Let us see what the additional resource they may give us in order to compensate us for the losses that we have seen recently are going to be, and take it forward on that basis. So that's the basis I'm taking it on, and I'm content with it on that.
Thank you very much. Well, I forgot to propose the recommendations. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Councillor Prater came in
right,
there.
good.
Thank you. Right, okay. I fully endorse the comments by Councillor Prater. I'm very much against slash and burn. I think you do have to just be a little steady at this point in time. And in fact, on this year's turnover, it's proved to be the case, hasn't it? Where we were projecting a massive loss over the year, we've now, as we find out in a minute, reduced it down to a containable sum. I believe containable anyway. Okay. Does any other member wish to speak on this? No. Okay. So it's proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Prater. Can we take the vote, please?
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Collier,
4.
Councillor Godfrey,
4.
Councillor Field,
4.
Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby,
4,
Councillor Monk,
Or
Councillor Peel,
4.
Councillor Prater,
Or
Councillor Wybrow,
4.
Councillor Wimble.
4.
That's unanimous, Leader.
thank you. Right, we move then on to item 7, which is the update to the general medium-term capital programme. Now, again, this went to the over scrutiny subgroup, and one of the things they raised and what we're asking for on recommendation 3 to seek full council approval to include a budget of 4.052 million to fund the buying of the new waste vehicles. The subcommittee expressed the concerns that both I know Councillor Wybrow have expressed, that we would want some lien on the vehicles were we to do that. Veolia have been spoken to and approached. They have no problem with that, and so our lawyers have been instructed to include an agreement where we keep a lien on the vehicles, which I think overcomes a great problem for many of us. Okay, so for the rest of the report, I move the recommendations. Is there a seconder? Councillor Peel, thank you. Okay, over to you, members. Councillor Mrs. Hollingsby.
yes, thank you, Leader. I was just going to sort of reiterate what you said. I think it's absolutely wonderful, whether that's the right word, that we've been able to get that agreement in terms of assets, in terms of the vehicles, and I think that's the right move.
Yes, I should point out that by doing this, we over the lifetime of the contract save about £1 million, so it's very well worth doing. Councillor Peel.
Yeah, no, thank you, Leader. And I just reiterated that. And I was going to say that the savings are significant over the lifetime of the contract. That's why we're considering it. It is effectively a loan. We will not own the vehicles during the lifetime of the contract. So again, I know members were concerned about the lien. I agree with that completely, and subject to the lawyers agreeing, and that's absolutely fine. My concern has always been if we owned, then we'd have the liability, and that takes us away from that as well. So we don't have the liability here, we don't have the ownership, but we do get the savings, and I think that's an excellent outcome for the council and for the for the district effectively.
Yes, so perhaps we should explain that the lien means that were Veolia to become insolvent, the vehicles would revert to us. Councillor Prater.
Yeah, that was basically what I was just going to say, is that for those who are watching live or on playback, that's exactly what the lean was, is that it secures our financial position. I'm a little, I'd be really pleased if we could put that in as a recommendation 5, or the paper could reflect that something about that lean as a recommendation, just because the paper itself doesn't. That is clearly what we are voting for and accepting. I'm very happy to, with that recommendation, with that lean in there, accept it. I think it would be clearer for the minute, or even if it's just minuted, that we understand that will be worked into the agreement. That's fine, but I think it would be helpful to have.
I'll just check with the Chief Executive that minuted will be sufficient. Chief Executive, can you advise me?
Yes, Leader. A minute will be adequate for the purpose. Officers understand, lawyers have been instructed, and the minutes will reflect this discussion point. Thank you.
Okay. Does any other member wish to speak on this? No? Okay, so it's proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Peel. Can we have the vote, please?
Leader, Councillor Collier,
For.
Councillor Godfrey,
For.
Councillor Field,
For.
Councillor Mrs Hollingsby,
For.
Councillor Monk,
For.
Councillor Peel,
For.
Councillor Prater,
Or
Councillor Wybrow,
For.
and Councillor Wimble.
For.
That's unanimous. Yeah.
Thank you. We now come on to item 8, Romney Marsh Employment Hub. Councillor Wimble.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm very happy to bring this one to the Cabinet. A good example of the Council working with partners like the NDA and South Eastern LEP. I also like to point out that the officers, particularly Graham Hammond, has been working very hard on this for a long time. It's a 2-phase project, one to work on the hub, and the second part to do the infrastructure around it. And it's a pleasure to want to move the officers' recommendations.
Okay, is there a seconder for that?
I'll second, Leader.
Who was that?
John Collier.
Councillor Collier, thank you. Okay, over to you, members. Councillor Mrs Hollingsby.
Just to say, delighted and congratulations to all those who've been involved. It's excellent.
Yes. Oh, and indeed, it helps our long-term ambition to create employment down on the marsh, which has always been a problem. This is a good step forward. Okay, is there any other member wishes to speak on this? Then it's proposed by Councillor Wimble, seconded by Councillor Collier. Can we have the vote, please?
Yes, Leader. Councillor Collier, Councillor Collier,
He's struggling to unmute.
For. For. Sorry.
Councillor Godfrey,
For.
Councillor Field,
For.
Councillor Mrs Hollingsby,
For.
Councillor Monk,
For.
Councillor Peel,
For.
Councillor Prater,
or
Councillor Wybrow,
For.
Councillor Wimble.
For.
That's unanimous, Leader.
Thank you very much. Okay, and that actually concludes this Cabinet meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Can we stop the recording?
Have you managed to stop the stream, Kate?